During his speech last night, President Biden weighed in on the protesting going on outside the DNC. He seems to have handed some credibility to those spewing the anti-Israel hate, though. Watch this.
Now, before Harris goes into this, I got to talk about the simple fact that there are countless businesses losing a tremendous amount of money as a result of this DNC taking place here. We've already seen reports of business owners, company owners who have employees, they have responsibilities. They're having to shut down and board up their businesses because of this Democratic National Convention. And the Democratic candidates for the presidential election for 2024 don't even care. And that is a huge problem.
Is set to begin. Area businesses are taking some precautions.
Some companies in the loop are starting to board up ahead of the big event.
Businesses are taking steps to prevent potential threats to their property, like looting or vandalism, by adding protection. That's why the owner of Sid Jerome Menswear is reinforcing his downtown store by covering up the windows with plywood in anticipation of possible civil unrest and violent protests that may come from the Democratic National Convention.
We know from past experiences that something could ensue, so we wanted to be proactive and get ahead of it.
And this is why we need Donald Trump in office. Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, they don't know anything about running a business. They don't know anything about that. And especially if you compare Tim Walz to J.D. Vance, Tim Walz is pretty much a broke ass compared to J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance is doing way better off financially. J.D. Vance runs a business and has been running a business successfully for several years, for many years. And Donald Trump, I mean, he runs multiple businesses to the tune of billions of dollars. Clearly, these individuals are way more qualified to run our country, to run an economy. They understand how the economy works, all right? They understand how businesses work. You don't hear Republican National Conventions, the RNCs. You don't hear the RNCs coming into town and then all of a sudden businesses have to board up their stores. No, you see more and more businesses opening their stores, staying open later, opening earlier, making more money when the RNC comes in town. You see more entrepreneurs coming out and selling different gifts or different accessories and promotional items related to the RNC. There's a huge difference. This should be a warning sign for anyone who's thinking about casting a vote for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, guys.
And now the media is freaking out because she's telling everybody she's a commie. Obama's economic guru tells the New York Times this isn't a sensible policy. Washington Post calls it a gimmick. The Atlantic calls her plan economically dumb. USA Today says, don't fall for it. Charles Gasparino reports Wall Street is working overtime this weekend, warning clients that Kamala is clueless about business. She was supposed to be the corporate America candidate. Lobbyists would be telling her what to do. She's not supposed to have any ideas of her own, or at least she's not supposed to be sharing them. And now she's promising breadlines and free houses? Those donations are going to dry up if she keeps telling voters what's going on in that little head of hers.
You're telling me that when a presidential candidate comes in town for a Democratic National Convention for the DNC, that businesses suddenly need to board up their stores and take cover? Do you really want these people running your country? I don't.
Those protesters out in the street, they have a point. A lot of innocent people are being killed on both sides.
Whoa, hold on a second. Did Joe Biden just support the pro-Palestinian protesters? Now, I'm not taking sides here, but I'm just saying, like, the president here has clearly said that he's in support of the pro-Palestinian protesters here. So what does it say for America? That's all I'm saying. What does it say for America? What does it say for your leadership? What does it say for Israel? I'm just asking the question. I'm posing the question for you guys because I think this was an unscripted, off-the-script comment that Joe Biden made. And the simple fact of the matter is that Joe Biden, he's been kicked out of the club. He's been booted out by the Democratic Party, so to speak, really. And I think he's probably at a point where he's like, you know what, F it. I'm going to just say whatever's on my mind because He's not worried about getting reelected. That ship has sailed.
Biden has said that over and over again. Fox News host Trey Gowdy says that the left's pandering to protesters is a gift to Republicans.
These protests may be the best thing Republicans have going for them. The more imagery you can show of people, go back to October the 7th. Killing women and butchering children, and you want to protest and reward that with a state? Good luck selling that to people in swing states.
In focus now, Mike Huckabee, former Republican governor of Arkansas, and he has run for president. It is great to see you today, Governor. Let's start with the hate on full display and the anger toward Democrats, especially Kamala Harris, over Israel.
It's really...
Now, before he even begins to go into this, I want you to look at what we're seeing here. So, I don't know if I've seen this much contradiction from any political party more than what we're seeing here today. What we're looking at here are clearly angry protesters pushing, trying to knock down this barricade, this wall, this gate, this border. And you have the border czar, who is Kamala Harris, who, you know, the title border czar is accepted or declined depending upon whenever she sees fit, whenever it's beneficial to her, right? But here we see a clear deviation from what she's been all about from the start. She's all about having no borders for America. But yet you have borders for the Democratic National Convention here. You have borders for the DNC, and you have these borders. You have this massive gate that probably runs for, you know, thousands of feet, if not miles, to keep certain people out. But I thought this was the inclusive party. Love who you want to love. Everyone's included. If that's the case, why do you need the gates? Why do you need the borders? Right? I'm just saying, like, this is I'm repeating what they're saying. I'm repeating their policies and what they've done, and they don't even support their own policies.
Hard to get your arms around the fact that Kamala Harris and Joe Biden have done more to try to maybe massage this issue.
Wow.
And they've even said, as Joe Biden...
Look at this. You got the protesters having knocked down the border wall. You've got the protesters knocking down the barriers, this gate, into the streets, and the protesters are now, they're running through. They're walking through, they're climbing over, and who knows what they're about to do.
Did last night. Oh, these protesters have a point. What is that point? The point is that Hamas came across the Israeli border and they massacred, slaughtered viciously little babies, violently raped women in front of their families, and slaughtered over 1,200 people. There were innocent civilians. What is the point? And the fact that a lot of people in Gaza have died is largely because Hamas hides all of their own weaponry among their innocent civilians. So this is something that could have been over from the beginning if Hamas had surrendered. It could be over today if Hamas would surrender, but they don't. And Joe Biden's ridiculous statement that they have a point, obviously Joe didn't have a point there.
Man, I feel like that statement from Joe Biden is going to come back to haunt the Democratic National Convention. It's going to haunt the Democratic Party for a long time. And the Democrats can't let accidents like that keep happening. And this is probably why they decided to keep Joe Biden off the stage until the end of the night. Like, in fact, they kept pushing Joe Biden further and further back into the evening. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later on today. But they didn't want Joe Biden to come on stage. Oh, they really didn't. They really did not want Joe Biden to come on stage, and that's why they kept pushing his time frame back. And this they've been really trying to just push Joe Biden out of the club, push Joe Biden out the Democratic Party, and I think that's what brought him to tears, to be honest with you guys.
Well, it seems like they don't really know what to do with the people outside. And there's some collision of ideas on how much they matter politically. Doug Schoen, who you know was part of the Clinton administration, not administration, but advisory inside the White House, was on with me yesterday and said they don't need that number of voters who are outside protesting. They can win without them. That's what he says about Democrats. So they're doing some calculus of how to deal with them. Meanwhile, they have signs that say to kill their own candidate. You'd think that they could speak up against that, but they don't. All right, let's get to this. President Biden took off very fast last night after he spoke. Just 12 hours ago, he hadn't even started yet. He was about to speak 12 hours ago at the DNC. And now he's 2 time zones away. And when he was in Chicago, Biden told reporters over and over, there's no bad blood over the push for him to drop out of the race for re-election.
Donald Trump claims that you were pushed out, put from the top of the ticket, and this was amounts to a coup from your party. What do you make of those claims?
Stability is still present. And the honor of my lifetime to serve as your president. I love the job, but I love my country more. I love my country more. And all this talk about how I'm angry at all those people who said I should step down, that's not true.
Well, this is true. They delayed him over and over last night as they changed the schedule and added speakers at the DNC. Biden finally took the stage, and editorial columnists are writing this. Dems buried him at 11:30 p.m. in a final disgrace. Politico Playbook called it the late show and referred to Biden as
making fun of him.
Midnight Cowboy. The New York Post cover with past his bedtime. Biden appeared emotional at times, and he stood in front of the Democratic Party basically cheering for the end of his political career. Decades as a congressman, senator, vice president, and president.
They brought Joe Biden to tears, guys, and they kept pushing the clock back for when Joe Biden would actually take the stage. And the sad thing is he ends up leaving the stage crying. I mean, and he said some things that were not particularly helpful for the Democratic Party at the DNC. That's not a good look for the party. That's not a good look for their team. So I understand why a lot of people were saying that Joe Biden getting on stage was a complete disaster, in fact. So, and I think it's real clear why they want to get Joe Biden off the ticket. He's clearly in mental decline. But anyway. But the thing that gets me is how he kind of comes after Donald Trump still, talking about Donald Trump's mental decline. And I just don't see it, guys. By the way, if you haven't already, please take a second, hit the like button for the video. Totally appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for sharing these videos. Thank you for subscribing to the channel.
And more headlines now. Poor, unwanted Joe Biden. Biden basks in the applause from Democrats who dethroned him. Well, in that cheering audience, former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. Remember, she reportedly was instrumental in getting President Biden to quit the ticket. And she didn't exactly shy from rubbing salt in the wound.
Nancy Pelosi wanted Joe Biden gone, in spite of how much Jill Biden was not willing to let Joe quit. Jill Biden wasn't ready to go. If we were to interview Jill Biden today, she's not a political candidate. She's not on the Democratic Party or anything like that. Like Dr. B would likely give it to a straight. And I'd be willing to bet Dr. Jill Biden would probably come out and be like, look, they've been trying to get my husband. They've been trying to execute this coup on Joe Biden to get him out of the presidential race, and they finally got him to do it. They finally got Joe Biden to quit. I think she'd come out and tell us the truth, honestly.
Yeah, it's kind of sad. I mean, this is from the side of the aisle that are his friends. These are the people that supposedly love him that are saying these very horrible things, and the ones that put him on the program long after his bedtime. Quite frankly, I think a lot of America was asleep when he spoke because they wanted to make sure Joe was also somehow asleep. But he did yell his speech out for 48 long minutes. It seemed more like 48 hours. And it was one that just was kind of sad to watch this swan song, more of a head dive into a pool without water.
You know, it reminded me of something that a Democrat told me on the set yesterday, Brad Howard, who's one of the surrogates for this campaign. These are shiny objects, and it means that they don't have to talk about the things that they don't want to talk about. And that would be the protesters, the anti-Kamala Harris crowd out there, the pro-Hamas crowd out there. They don't have to talk about that. They can focus on other things, like the balloons that celebrate abortion and birth control.
It does seem like there's some residual bad blood or resentment, and I'm wondering if you've spoken to him and what your response is to that.
Sometimes you just have to take a punch for the children.
Whoa.
I have to do what I have to do.
Right.
He made the decision for the country. My concern was not about the president, it was about his campaign.
Okay, sure, Joe Biden made the decision, but you're not gonna sit here and lie to the American people that there wasn't a tremendous amount of pressure placed on Joe Biden within the Democratic Party to get him off the ticket. And the other thing that we got to talk about, at least for a half a second, is what is Nancy Pelosi talking about? Sometimes you got to take a punch for the kids, or take a punch for the children, or whatever the heck she just said. What does that mean? Take a punch for the children. Now, this was the former Speaker of the House, and I feel like Nancy Pelosi has a lot of trouble speaking. I don't know how she could ever even qualify for the role of being Speaker of the House, but Nancy Pelosi, guys, I don't know, taking a punch for the children. So that's a good point. Is this a dig on domestic abuse? Like, what is Nancy Pelosi really saying with that remark? Sometimes you got to take a punch for the children. And especially Nancy Pelosi being a woman, and the Democratic Party pushing so hard and trying to show how important women are going to be for this election. I mean, obviously women are important every election, but they're making this extra point, this extra push, trying to convey to the American voters that, you know, they're just going extra hard on women, and they're also going extra hard on the black vote as well. But what do y'all thought? What do you guys think about this? Let me know in the comments down below. Appreciate you guys. Drop me some comments, thoughts, regards. Also, if you haven't already, please take a second, hit the like for the video. Thank you for subscribing to the channel. Thank you for sharing this video. And I'm going to see you guys on the next one. Y'all be safe.